And it says we're live there. All right, so hi everyone, and this will be the camera up here. You know that. Here with my friend Robert Spencer, who's a little bit behind the times. He can go live with other people if they're doing most of the tech stuff. So I wanted to show him how to do live streaming. He's about to start a series called This Week in Jihad.
This Week in Jihad, ladies and gentlemen.
Where he gives the same information from his site, but in video form, because there are people who learn primarily from videos. So I find that there's no better way than just turning on the live stream and starting to go through it, because you can't actually practice live stream very well if you're just by yourself. All right, so why doesn't everyone tell us where you're from over here, and I can show them how the comments section worked over here. And by the way, they're on like a 15-second delay, right?
Okay.
Because it goes from here and then it goes up to YouTube and goes to them. It's about a 15-second delay.
Texas.
So everyone here will start telling
Brazil.
us
I
where
love
they're from.
Brazil. Thought on Hinduism.
Yeah.
It's a religion. It's a major world religion.
Yeah.
It doesn't want to kill infidels, and I'm all for that.
Yeah, this is something I've actually mentioned before, because I get comments almost every day asking me to respond to Hinduism, and why would you guys think that what I say on Hinduism is reliable?
Yes.
The point there is, go to someone who studies Hinduism, right? For that, I could give you some general thoughts on Hinduism. It wouldn't be especially reliable, and there are people who would know Hinduism very, very well.
Conrad Elst.
Mm-hmm. All right, so where's everyone at?
South Carolina, my home state.
South Carolina, we got Blacksburg, Virginia, Pennsylvania, Toledo, Ohio.
Houston.
We got Houston, Bay Area, California.
Nolens. Canuckistan, eh? How's it going, eh?
Who not think they're going to beat them Saints? Everyone. Let's see, Florida, Israel,
Pennsylvania,
awesome.
New York City.
California,
Canada. Guyana. Now that is impressive.
Yep. Several people in New York. Switzerland.
Colombia.
Now,
Buenas tardes.
I believe Seattle here, Oregon, so Wichita Falls. So I think Robert is already seeing the power of live streaming.
The power.
Now, notice we just announced an hour ago that we're going to go live, and people from all over the place. Poland.
Hey, man, I used to live on Prospect Avenue in the Bronx.
I still live in the Bronx.
Yeah, he still lives in the Bronx.
So that's my homeboy there. Look at this: Poland, Croatia, Anchorage, Alaska,
Ireland.
When I was a kid, I spent 3 months on the Aleutian Island ADEC, Iran. You see this?
Yep, Iran. Oh, hey.
India, Montana, Netherlands, Washington State, Trinidad. I'm in an altered state. Lay off the stuff, dude. Lay off the stuff. Northern Ireland.
People's Republic of New Jersey.
India. Kenya. Look at that. So
say hello to Obama for us.
Morocco. Greece.
I
spent 4 summers on the sunny Isle of Crete when I was young. Yeah. Great. Awesome stuff. Londonistan. Austria, Kansas City, England, Michigan, Toronto, Dallas, Venezuela, Portugal. So we could, I'm sure, keep going on and on and on. Reading the Philippines.
This is really quite impressive.
All around the world stuff. And look, I'm not even.
Yeah.
I have to kind of zoom through here to go all the way down the page. All right, everyone. Well, I'm going to be, just so you know, I'll be pointing some things out to Robert as we go, because I'm not always going to be here, and it'll just it all seems confusing at first, but once you get the hang of it, it's pretty straightforward. So, also, once we'll talk a little bit about your book here for a bit, and then we'll start taking questions from over in the chat here, and then I can show you how to put these up on the screen. So, Robert, this book hasn't come out yet, even though we have them. So we're super cool. But I've heard you compare your new book, The History of Jihad from Muhammad to ISIS, to your older books. And so what's the comparison there?
David, this is my best book. This is my most important book.
because it fills in a gap in people's knowledge. This is the short answer to that. I think that this was kind of an unwitting trilogy. I wrote a book, The Complete Infidel's Guide to the Quran, and I think people generally know, if they are at all informed about these issues, they know that there are problematic passages in the Quran. And I wrote a book, The Truth About Muhammad, a biography of the Prophet of Islam, and I think here again, people generally know that there is a problem with many of the things that Muhammad said and did. But people do not know about the history of Islam. And I wanted to write actually a comprehensive history of Islam, but that would be a huge book. And so finally, the publisher and I, we settled on the history of jihad. This is a story that has not been told. David, as of course you yourself said to me, you know the Quran, you know Muhammad, and you know the present day situation, but don't know what's in between. Mm-hmm. And that's what this book supplies. It is the first and only book in English that tells the whole story of what has gone on in jihad activity, not just the jihad against Europe, which has been written about before, but the jihad against India and the jihad against other parts of the world. This is a story that's never been all told in one place. This is the first time, and I'm hoping that this book is going to make a difference in how people understand this entire phenomenon.
And I just wanted, he mentioned what I told him, because I just got my copy like 2 days ago, and so just flipping through the book and seeing what's in there. What he just mentioned that I said is that when I study jihad, I'm normally studying the lifetime of Muhammad and a little bit afterwards, right? So basically the rest of the century, but mainly the focus is on what Muhammad taught and how that first generation of Muslims interpreted it. So the rightly guided caliphs and Muhammad's own generation, because if they learned Islam at the feet of Muhammad, they're probably the ones who understand how they are to live according to those teachings. So normally when I'm studying jihad, I'm studying that early period. And then if I'm studying anything else, it's like today, what's going on today in the world. So, familiarizing yourself with ISIS and Al-Qaeda and so on and their interpretations. But all that middle stuff, unless I'm looking up something specific, haven't paid much attention. And I'm someone who deals with Islam regularly. And so what I'm saying is I'm someone who deals with Islam on a daily basis, and like 2/3 of this book is going to be pretty new information to me, right? So, and that's why it's huge, because one, you can look at the impact that Islam has on the world today, and two, you can look at the impact Islam had on the generation of Muhammad. But if we forget about all that middle stuff, we're missing a big piece of the pizza there, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I think that this does make a big difference in how we regard what has happened. For example, I wrote this book pretty much chronologically. It was a very easy book to organize and to outline because it's just jihad in the 7th century, jihad in the 8th century, jihad in the 9th century, and so on. And I wrote it pretty much like that. There were a few times I went back if I found some new material that I hadn't dealt with, but mostly it was just a straight shot. And my point is this. At the end, I started to write Jihad in the 21st Century. Chapter 10, The West Loses the Will to Live. And the beginning of that chapter is 9/11. Right after I explain what happened on 9/11, I go to George W. Bush going to the mosque in Washington 6 days after 9/11 in the company of Nihad Awad of the Hamas-linked Council on American Islamic Relations and Abdurrahman al-Amoudi, who is now in prison on a 23-year sentence for financing Al-Qaeda, although I believe Obama did get his sentence reduced a bit. In any case, in the company of these respected Islamic moderates, George W. Bush said, Islam is a religion of peace. Now, coming after I had just outlined and detailed 14 centuries of bloody, violent, oppressive jihad all around the world, it hit me with an incredible wallop to see George W. Bush say that. And the foolhardiness of it and the falsity of it hit me with a force that it did not when I even read about it at the time. And only underscored the fact that our public policy on these issues is drastically wrong-headed, based on falsehoods, and needs a tremendous adjustment. And that's one of the reasons why I wrote the book.
And so what can everyone do out there? Because you can write a book all day long, right?
Yes.
You can write, and you do, apparently, right?
Yes.
So you can write all the books in the world. At the end of the day, it has to come down to what they're going to do. So you got your book coming out here. What is it, August 7th?
August 7th, that's right.
August 7th.
Available now for pre-order at Amazon.com and Barnes & Noble.
August 7th, this becomes available. And so it's the same thing. They could get it and learn it, and then they would know the history of jihad, but that's not world changing either, right? It certainly helps the more people know it. But what would you recommend people do with what they learn here?
Well, I want this book to be the basis for action. And the first thing, of course, would be to become deeply familiar with what's in it, and then understand all the various implications that this kind of treatment has, that the facts in the book have for public policy. Take, for example, the Muslim Brotherhood linked organizations in the United States like CARE. And right now there is a push to declare the Muslim Brotherhood a terrorist organization, which would have a tremendous impact, of course, upon the Muslim Brotherhood affiliates in the U.S., like CARE, ISNA, all essentially of the major Muslim organizations in the U.S. Now, when you read the book and you see that jihad has been uninterrupted, and there's never been reform, never been a rejection of the jihad doctrine, that everywhere Muslims have gone, there's been conflict, started by the Muslims. And then you come to should the Muslim Brotherhood be declared a terrorist organization? And I discuss the Muslim Brotherhood extensively in Chapter 9 of this book, and show that its program is everywhere in the world to impose Sharia. And so you can take this information, take it to your elected officials, and call upon them and tell them they ain't going to get your vote unless they support the designation of the Muslim Brotherhood as a terrorist organization, and give them the reasons why that are in the book. There are so many other examples. I discuss extensively the partition of India and Pakistan, also in Chapter 9, which is Jihad in the 20th century. And Pakistan is an ally of the United States. We've been giving several $1 billion to the Pakistanis every year since 9/11 to fight al-Qaeda and the Taliban. And for at least 10 years, it has been publicly known that a great deal of that money has been taken by the Pakistani government and given to al-Qaeda and the Taliban. Clearly, they are using us and counting on our naivete and ignorance, and employing the deception that is sanctioned within Islam to take our money and to use it to finance our enemies. Now, the book is full of non-Muslims who aid the jihad. Starting with the conquest of Spain, there was a man named Count Julian who was very enraged with Roderick, the Visigothic king of Spain. He was so enraged with him that he went to Tariq ibn Ziyad, who was a Muslim governor in North Africa, and offered use of his ships to ferry the jihadis across the Strait of Gibraltar to invade Spain. Tariq ibn Ziyad was able to, he saw that as to be an effective offer, a good offer that he wanted to take, because if he used his own ships, the Visigoths would be ready. They would say, oh, here come the Muslims, and we have to be on our guard. But if it's Count Julian's ships, it's a Spanish guy, and they think, oh, there's nothing amiss here. It's just this tradesman who's coming back from whatever business he was engaged in. And that's exactly what happened. The Visigoths let their guard down. Tariq ibn Ziyad's men came in. Spain was conquered within 7 years. So the point is, there are so many Muslims who have been, non-Muslims rather, who have been useful idiots for the jihad over the centuries. And why are we behaving in the same way now? We should understand the government of Pakistan's intentions. It's an Islamic republic. It tells us that. It makes no secret of that. And there's no secret either of how it's been misusing the funds that we've given it. So here again, based on historical realities that are not known or ignored, we should break the alliance with Pakistan and understand that really we can't have an effective alliance with a state that is an Islamic republic. Now, does this mean we have to go to war with the whole world, the whole Islamic world? Of course not. but we need to formulate our policies on a more realistic basis, strengthen our ties with India, understand what they're up against, being targeted by Pakistani jihadis who are often aided by the Pakistani government itself, and understand what the Pakistani government is all about. So here again, we need to call upon our elected officials to take these, and I could just give examples all day of this kind of thing, but the point is, there are so many implications for public policy in this book. We need to base our foreign and domestic policies on a true understanding of jihad instead of the naivete, ignorance, and wishful thinking that our policies are based on now. And that is true in so many areas. I could go on for hours.
So you're saying that if a country has Christians sitting in its jails simply for being accused with no real evidence of any kind, just, hey, I don't like this Christian, so this Christian committed blasphemy and then gets thrown in jail, and that's how the government works, we shouldn't be sending them billions of dollars a year? Until they start getting these things right?
Yeah, that's a real good idea, David. And one thing, it was very heartening to see that President Trump the other day threatened sanctions against Turkey for holding a Christian pastor in prison on absolutely false charges that he was aiding terrorists. He's been living in Turkey, Pastor Andrew Brunson, for 23 years. He's not a terrorist, he's an evangelist. And the Turkish government is just anti-Christian, wanted to make a scapegoat out of him because he was dealing with Kurds. And of course, the Erdogan government is cracking down very hard and trying to make sure that Kurds who want their own country do not gain any traction. And so they're scapegoating this pastor. President Trump threatened them with sanctions unless they release him. And this is the kind of thing that we need to be doing, and being aware that governments like that of Turkey are not our allies, not our friends, never will be, and we need to deal with them on a more realistic footing.
Now, Robert, so you've gone through, you've clearly done a lot of studying of the past 14 centuries here, 14 centuries of history here.
All in one volume.
And again, most of this not known even by people who spend quite a bit of time studying Islam. Given your studies of these topics, I'm wondering how you would respond to some of the popular myths that we hear, right?
Yes, this book is dedicated to shattering many of those myths.
So something like, well, jihad, I don't even want to go with like some of the easy targets, right? Like myths. Jihad is just peaceful internal struggle against, not exercising or something like that, right? So going with something that's got a little more bite to it. Jihad is simply defensive war against.
Yeah.
So lots of people believe that, right? There are lots of Christians out there who believe that.
It's all pervasive, and it's ridiculous right from the beginning. If you go back to Muhammad, and the first chapter is Muhammad, the book is the History of Jihad from Muhammad to ISIS. Muhammad makes his first expedition against Christians in the year 630, when, according to the Islamic traditions, he's 60 years old. He goes in the heat of summer through the trackless wastes of the desert of Arabia to Tabuk, which was in southern Syria or northern Arabia, depending on where you put the border. And he wanted to attack the outpost of the Byzantine Empire that was there. And there was nobody there. Islamic apologists will tell you there was nobody there because the Byzantines had heard Muhammad was coming and they were scared. Now, that's extraordinarily unlikely that an Arab chieftain, however successful he had been, would have scared the Byzantine Empire of the year 630. Mm-hmm. It was one of the great powers of the world. Now, this is the other thing about it, though. It's unlikely that they were scared of Muhammad, but it is true that they were not as strong as they wanted to appear to be, because the Byzantines and the Persians were the two great powers of the day, and they had fought a series of wars against each other for the decades before Muhammad appeared on the scene, according to Islamic tradition. And so they were exhausted. And the Byzantines weren't there, actually, because they didn't have enough troops to man all the garrisons full time along the border. And so they would move their border troops from fort to fort and hope that nothing was going to happen that would reveal their weakness. But this weakness was discovered probably when the Arabs went up to Tabuk and they saw that nobody was there. And so they saw that actually the conquest of the Byzantine holdings in the Middle East and North Africa would not be that difficult. And it wasn't, because they were so substantially weakened. But there is just no chance in this scenario that the Byzantines were attacking the Muslims. They would have no reason to do so. Arabia was mostly desert, was not on the trade routes, and had no political, military, or economic value. And so there was just no reason whatsoever for the Byzantines to cross those trackless desert wastes and go find the Muslims. The Muslims ended up going out and finding that the Byzantines were weak and taking advantage of that. But that makes it not a defensive war. They were attacking the Byzantines who had not attacked them. This is true throughout Islamic history, as I show in the book. The conquest of India started not long after this, in the 670s. And the Muslim governor of Iraq, Hajjaj ibn Yusuf, who had a great deal to do with the formulation of Islam itself, as I show in my other book, Did Muhammad Exist? Hajjaj ibn Yusuf sent a Muslim commander into India, and he told him to be merciless, because these were not people of the book. They had to either convert or die. And he actually scolded his commander for being too merciful and allowing too many people to surrender and live in peace. And there is no record whatsoever of any Indian group attacking the Muslims before this expedition. And the same thing, it goes on and on, that the Spanish were attacked, as I explained before, because the Count Julian was angry with the Visigothic king. There was no attack on the part of the Spanish, the Visigoths, to the Muslims. It's the same thing over and over again. Throughout history, the book shows that jihad, for the very great part, has been offensive, has been Muslims gratuitously attacking non-Muslim lands in order to bring them under the sway of Sharia. And that's what it's been all about. The idea that jihad is only defensive could only be believed by somebody who has no idea of either Islamic theology or Islamic history.
And I'd just like to say, if Islam conquered Arabia and then conquered all the way through Asia over into India and China in the east, and then simultaneously is fighting its way across northern Africa and up into Europe in the west, if Islam conquered all that territory through defense, that is some serious defense right there. That is no, I mean,
that probably would involve some interceptions. That's not just ordinary.
That is
defense.
some world champion defense there. All right, let me ask one more question, just because it comes up so frequently, and then we can go to some questions in the chat. And just so you know, everyone, I've seen the people contributing with the super chat, but Robert, I don't know if I can even show it, has the weirdest mouse I've ever seen in my life, and I can't figure out how to scroll through. I can scroll down the comments that are part of this program, but as far as scrolling up on the actual YouTube page where I can go back and see the super chatters, I want to show people this mouse, because this is some amazing.
Prevents carpal tunnel, my friends.
So this is this weird mouse, right?
I haven't had carpal tunnel for 12 years.
And this,
I type all day.
This is fine as long as it worked normally, but this gets you around on the page. But as soon as you want to scroll up through something, I haven't figured it out yet. But so we'll figure that one out later. Now, one more.
You didn't say you were going to make fun of my mouse on this show.
I will, for the rest of my life, make fun of your mouth. That is one weird mouse. It does look like something off Star Trek, though. That's okay.
That's right, Captain.
Yeah. One more question, and then we'll go to some of the chats here, because I can pull comments over here and insert them. Just wanted you guys to know that I did see you guys in the super chat there. The Crusades.
Yes.
Now, the way I was taught the Crusades in middle school and high school and college was always the same. Bunch of peaceful Muslims minding their own business in the Middle East, and a bunch of war-hungry Christians decided they needed all that land too, so they went and attacked. Is that what you guys heard? historically about the Crusades? Because that's what I heard all my life, and I for years, even as an apologist, I would use this as an example of look here, look, Christians were violent too because they're ignoring the teachings of Jesus. But there's a bigger story here. Is that an accurate representation of what happened?
No. In reality, what happened was this. The Christians were being persecuted in the Holy Land for several centuries before there was ever a crusade. The Muslims conquered Jerusalem in 636, and they were very oppressive to the Christians. Christian pilgrims from Europe were routinely roughed up or stolen from or even enslaved or killed. And many, many churches, the Caliph al-Hakim in the early part of the 11th century, he destroyed a huge number of churches in the Holy Land, including the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, which was, of course, supposed to house the tomb of Christ, from where he rose from the dead. And he kept on persecuting the Christians very ferociously until he decided that he himself was a god, and then he kind of laid off on the jihad and the persecution of the infidels, since he himself had become one. Now, the thing is that this is 630s when Jerusalem is conquered. Al-Hakim is in the early part of the 11th century, the 1000s, and there is no response in all those years, 450 years, no response from Christian Europe to jihads that conquered over half of what was the Christian world before that. No response whatsoever. So then, in 1071 is one of the most fateful years in human history, as a matter of fact. And that was when the Byzantines met a Muslim army of Turks at Manzikert in what is now eastern Turkey, eastern Anatolia, or Asia Minor. And they were smashed. They were defeated very, very soundly. And the Byzantine emperor was taken captive. And the Byzantine Empire then was decimated to the extent that it lost control over what was its heartland and breadbasket, which was Asia Minor, or Anatolia, what is now Turkey. And the Turks conquered this land relatively swiftly and began to Islamize it. Now, the emperor, Alexius Comnenus, at that time actually appealed to the Pope, even though this was in the 1070s, and so it was just a few years after the Great Schism between the Eastern Church and the Western Church, or what are known today as the Roman Catholic Church and the Orthodox Church. He nonetheless appealed to the Pope for help. And things didn't move as quickly as they do now in those days. In 1095, when Pope Urban II called for the crusade, it was in response to the appeal for help from Alexius Comnenus, and the understanding that if the jihad was not countered, then it was going to eventually impinge upon all of the Christians in Europe. And so it was the incumbent upon the Christians in Europe to come to the aid of the Christians in Asia Minor. And so that was why the crusade was called. This is not to say that everything that the Crusaders did was right, but the idea of the Crusades was a small-scale, defensive response to 450 years of unanswered jihad aggression.
All right, so apparently almost all of us heard wrong in school, and
what a surprise!
Good topic to study. Now, I want to start going through some questions. We're going to go about another half hour. This is just quick 1 hour live stream.
Yes,
but wanted to go through some questions, and we'll focus. I'll give preference to questions that have to do with jihad, with the topic. Although if something looks interesting, we might grab it. Now, here's actually one, and normally I wouldn't put this up here, but you and I were talking about it recently,
yeah.
And we're planning on actually making a video just because you don't want everyone for the rest of your life, guessing, right?
Yeah, that's fair enough.
So maybe we'll give a short answer here, and then a different time we'll make a separate video.
Yeah.
But from Jordan Marshall here, let me go ahead and read it. Jordan Marshall says, hey, Rob, I read on Google that you're a Catholic and you are born
Are you?
again. Oh, yeah. Are you a born again Catholic, or do you believe in the Assumption of Mary, purgatory, etc.? Now, you don't make a big deal about publicly discussing your religious views.
That's correct.
Why would that be?
Well, there's a very important reason for that. Is this right in front of us on the screen that everybody sees?
Oh, yeah.
Maybe you can move it down.
I can move it.
Yeah.
I can do it. I have that technology.
You're an amazing guy.
What?
Look at that. Wow. The things these kids can do today.
Uh-huh.
Anyway, this is the deal. I wanted to, when I started doing this work, and I still hold to this, I wanted to alert people of all faiths, or no faith at all, of all political persuasions, everything that there is out there. I wanted to alert people to what was in the Quran, what was in the Sunnah, what was in the teachings of Islamic law, and help them to understand the motivating ideology behind the jihad, terrorist attacks, the oppressive aspects of Sharia, and so on. Now, because
everyone needs to know this stuff.
Because everybody needs to know this stuff.
By the way, including Muslims.
Because it's common. And yes, including Muslims, because there are many Muslims who may not dare to tell us, but they are just as oppressed by these things as any non-Muslim, and they would love to not live under it. But they don't have that choice because they'll get killed if they state that publicly. But I know you're out there. You know you're out there. I love you. David loves you. That's why we're doing this. Anyway, look, this is the deal. Those things exist. The Quran exists. The Sunnah exists. Muhammad exists. The teachings of the Islamic schools of jurisprudence exist, regardless of what my particular beliefs are. I wanted to report on those things, not about my own life. I wanted to speak about the nature and magnitude of the jihad threat without any other considerations being involved. All right? So this is why I have never spoken about these things. Ultimately, of course, as a Christian, this is something that I think has to do with the faith that I have, but this is a work that I believe that anybody could do, and that if I had been an atheist, if I'd been a Buddhist, if I had been a Hindu, if I had been anything else you want to name, or a Jew that everybody thinks I am, then I would be doing the same things. Because this is a threat that threatens all of us, and we all need to hang together to respond to it. Okay, that said, now the next question is, so what do you really think?
Yeah, and what? How come half the time I come over, you're listening to Bob Dylan gospel music?
I love Bob Dylan gospel music. That's great stuff. You should get those records. Slow Train Coming, Saved, and Shot of Love. But anyway,
a lot of you younger people don't know this, but
he doesn't even give me a percentage, Bob. It's terrible.
Yeah, Bob Dylan has had a born again experience a few decades ago, and then he put out some gospel albums, and
they're very good.
Yeah, Robert loves those.
Yes,
it's right up there with Snoop Dogg's gospel album that he which by the way is also
that real? Is that
it's good.
Seriously,
it's actually good, right?
Wow.
You see this. You see this with lots of people. With Snoop Dogg, he's clearly a guy who was raised in the church when he was young.
Yeah.
Still always believes it, just never lives by it. Lives by it. But at the end of the day, deep down, he really believes it's true. And so he wanted, hey, I just want to do something positive one day and stuff. And so he goes ahead and makes a gospel
Prince.
album.
Prince was like that, wasn't he?
He was a Jehovah's Witness.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I shouldn't even talk about these people. I don't know anything about them.
Yeah.
Sorry about that, folks. I will no longer talk about things I don't know anything about. And I know now there's all these Muslims out there saying, then stop talking about Islam. But I do know about that, my friends. Anyway, yes. So I also don't think that it's all that relevant what I am, because I'm just some guy. And I'm not recommending the trajectory of my own faith life as any kind of exemplar.
Mm-hmm. So you would want, as far as if we're looking at this as, people who believe in Jesus are a body and can go out and do different things, you basically view your purpose in the world as teaching people about jihad primarily.
Yeah.
Okay. And
yeah, I do not hold to the view. I know that there is the school of thought out there that what you're doing is not worthwhile if you're not preaching Jesus explicitly.
Mhm.
And I don't think that that's true.
I don't even think that it's biblical, right? When people wanted to kill Paul and the Roman soldiers would protect him, I'm pretty sure he thought that was some valuable stuff, whether they're Christian or not.
Yes.
Hey, they're protecting me. That's good stuff, and it's important that they do their job well. He even appealed to Caesar, right?
Yes.
I appeal to Caesar. I want to go before pagan Caesar so he can defend my cause and defend my human
That's a
rights.
good
So
point.
he regards these things as very important. And so yeah, you do have you do have these two schools of thought, which are basically, it's Christians versus everyone else.
Yes.
And in a theological sense, yes, we are called to make disciples of all nations, to preach the gospel and so on. But there is this stark reality that everyone, whether you're atheist or Hindu or whatever, people need to know what jihad teaches, because that affects us all. And as Christians, we are told to seek the good of all people, right? We are to seek the good of all people.
Yes.
Well, that involves you not getting your head chopped off, even if you're not a Christian, right? And so there are threats in this world that are important for us to deal with. And even if you were just looking at it from a Christian perspective, if your concern were only Christians, well, guess what? Christians are getting slaughtered. Christians are getting slaughtered in the name of Allah. And that's not going to change unless the entire world gets involved. And that entire world would involve lots of other people who aren't Christians. In other words, there needs to be one massive outcry against jihad. And so, massively important. So you haven't made your religion a very public issue.
No, never.
Okay.
And that's because the work I'm doing does not stand on, a lot of people have said, as a matter of fact, John Derbyshire, who is a writer of some kind, he has said, he's claimed that my problem with Islam is because I'm a Christian, and it's some sort of a competition. Mm-hmm. It's a party thing. I'm not a Democrat, so I'm a Republican.
Yeah.
And so I'm running down the Democrats because I'm in the other club.
So your real problem is you don't like Islam because it's not Christian, and so you're using the jihad stuff to attack.
But John Derbyshire is completely wrong about that, because the problems, as I've said, the problems with Islam impinge upon all of us. Mm-hmm. Everyone who is not a Muslim, and even those who are not Muslims of the right kind, as the jihadis in question are. And so this is something that should unite mm-hmm. people of all kinds of different backgrounds. And it's on that basis that I have done all my work. Mm-hmm. And so it has never been depending upon my being a Christian.
Yeah, and that's a crucial point, because I get the same thing too. David, you're just doing this because you're a Christian and you don't like Islam because it's anti-Christian or something like that. Well, if that were true, then I should be equally blasting, Hinduism and everything else, every non-Christian religion. Now, just to be clear, I believe that non-Christian religions are false. I believe in evangelism. I believe in discipleship. I believe in all those things. But when I think about how I'm going to spend my time, and this is, I believe we're a body. I believe there are different Christians called to do different things in the body. But when there's this ideology out there, and it's massive and it's growing, and it's, according to some statistics, within a few decades going to be the most widespread ideology on the planet here in a few decades. And it calls for my death and the violent subjugation of my family and the violent deaths of many of my friends who are former Muslims, and the violent subjugation of the entire world. That's kind of going to get my attention more than other things that are out there. And so usually when I'm responding to something, it's Islam and sometimes atheism. And that's because I'm a former atheist, and just because atheists come at you, right? If you're a Christian, atheists come at you. So I respond because apart from Muslims, the most typical responses I get or arguments I get are from sort of aggressive atheists. Now, with that said, there are tons of atheists out there who are fans of my work and your work, and who kind of see things along those lines of, hey, yeah, I disagree with you. I even think you're stupid for believing in the Bible. I think you're dumb for those. But whatever happens, let's not be run by that, right?
Yeah,
let's not be run by Sharia, anything else, right? There are people who are like that. Right?
I've always wanted to form an international, as a matter of fact, counter-jihad alliance. And Hugh Fitzgerald, who, if you are familiar with Jihad Watch, my website, you know Hugh Fitzgerald's writings. He's an atheist. And we're very good friends. We're working together for this common goal. Of course, I've worked extensively with Pamela Geller, and she's Jewish. And we have featured Hindu speakers and Sikh speakers at our rallies back a few years ago when we were holding rallies about the Ground Zero Mosque and other issues. And we all ought to be standing together against this. But anyway, I guess I should get to the rest of the question.
Yeah, so, well, just to summarize right there. So
yes.
We believe it's important what you believe, right? What people believe.
Yes.
And we believe there are true beliefs and false beliefs. But at the same time as all of that, everyone, regardless of belief, does need to be united against one thing that will destroy us all if we don't pay attention to it, right?
Yes.
In other words, suppose you like Christians, if you're Christians and you like doing apologetics with atheists and stuff like this, you like having dialogues with atheism and so on, guess what? You better be concerned about jihad, because if the jihadis get their way, that all ends, right? You're not going to be having discussions with atheists anymore. So whatever your interests are, there's this great big thing going on in the world that affects everything else, no matter what you're doing, no matter what you are doing in the world, unless you are in a jungle that's never been reached by anyone. Jihad is having an impact on you. So good to pay attention to. But yes.
So yeah,
we were going to do this really short, like, but let's go through.
Well, that's a whole lot of preamble.
Yeah,
really,
so
for the question.
Share as much as you would like to share on this.
Okay, the question is: I read on Google that you're a Catholic, and are you a born again Catholic, or do you believe in the Assumption of Mary, purgatory, etc.?
First of all, are you Catholic?
No, I am not.
You heard it here, folks.
Yes,
you heard it here.
I was, but I am no longer. I left the church a few years ago, and I am in the Orthodox Church, and very happy to be there. And the reason why, in very brief, is this. I was getting a lot of grief from the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops. As a matter of fact, my own Catholic bishop told me that every time he went to U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops meetings, they would tell him, you got to do something about this guy, meaning me. They did not like my work. I went and spoke at a Lutheran conference in Texas a few years ago, and the Lutheran bishop was very kind, and he said, you know, the Catholic bishops send a representative to our annual conference every year. But this year, when they heard you were the keynote speaker, they pulled out. And of course, I was also canceled in speaking by many bishops. I was told by Monsignor Stuart Sweatland on a radio show that I was a heretic for not believing that Islam is a religion of peace, because several popes have said it is. And so the point is not here that I got angry with them, although some of this was, of course, very troubling personally. But I started to think, if these people could be so wrong, not only do they disapprove of my work, but they actually think that Islam is a religion of peace, and they are enforcing that on people. The U.S. Catholic bishops are very much more concerned that you believe that Islam is a religion of peace than that you believe that, say, Jesus is the Son of God, or something that the church is really supposed to be about. And that led me to start to question a lot of the claims of the authority of the Catholic Church that I had taken up. I was actually baptized in the Orthodox Church, and so I joined the Catholic Church while I was in college or graduate school or something. It was way back when. And this was coming out of various studies I was making at the time. But I started to realize that a lot of it was special pleading. A lot of it was wishful thinking to a great degree. I'm not too proud to admit that I was wrong. And that ultimately, if you have a group that's claiming that it has the authority to speak with the guidance of the Holy Spirit, and it's so spectacularly wrong about something that is going to destroy it itself, then, well, you got to wonder if maybe it's not guided by the Holy Spirit. So I have rejoined the Orthodox Church. I should say, since the question is, are you a born-again Catholic, that I was a born-again Christian in college and went to all these evangelical Protestant groups, but it was trying to navigate through these various different factions that all invoked Scripture to justify their positions that were diametrically opposed to each other, I started to get an appreciation for the ecclesiastical tradition. As Jesus said that the Holy Spirit will guide you into all the truth, and if you have Scripture and everybody is getting it in a different way, then the idea of the Holy Spirit guiding the church through the centuries starts to become more sensible as something that can help you navigate through all these competing claims regarding the Scriptures. So anyway, that's the short answer. We can, of course, argue about that for years to come. But yes, I'm an Orthodox Christian and very grateful to be one.
All right. And I have no doubt that there are lots of people saying to themselves, David, now jump on him about this.
Yes.
And ask him about this. There's not...
Go ahead.
It's just...
Go ahead. Bring it.
I believe I would get schooled.
That's very generous of you.
No, I'm saying I don't study what's wrong about the Orthodox Church. It's not.
Yeah, well, you know something. Since we're talking about this, our mutual friend James White had said that he refused to discuss whether Your Islamicize Me series, of course, that I appeared in. He refused to discuss whether it was charitable or whether it was an outrage of Paul saying don't engage in silly talk and frivolity and so on. He wouldn't discuss that with me. He said that's a gospel discussion and you don't do gospel discussions. And he refused my invitation to debate on this, saying, I've never seen you doing scriptural exegesis.
Wait, but if you were offering to do the discussion, then wouldn't that mean that you are doing the discussion?
Well, he could have beat me bad in the debate, presumably, since he said you don't deal with scriptural exegesis. The thing is, though, the work on Islam is my public work. I have a life, and I've done plenty of other things. And I have done the kind of scriptural exposition and exegesis that he was saying that I hadn't done. I haven't done it publicly, it's true. But I would be happy to discuss these things with him in an open debate. I was about to say mutually respectful open debate, but there's no respect coming from his side. So the offer still stands. I've just found his disdain and condescension puzzling.
Yeah, I don't know why. I mean, if someone's saying this is wrong and you say, well, let's debate whether it's wrong or let's debate whether it's biblical, and then the response is, no, you don't do that kind of thing. Yeah, that's really, really weird. Right?
Yeah.
That's really, really weird, right? If you're blasting us on it being wrong and you're saying, well, let's get up and let's state our cases and so on, and then, no, you don't do this kind of discussion, which you're offering to do.
Yeah.
Maybe he didn't like the way the other debate you did went.
I think he has very good reason not to like that debate.
All right. So let's, we only have about 13 minutes more or so. Let's kind of zoom through some of these as they pop up. And I'm just going to start clicking where the little thing is scrolled here. David, many people are being deceived about Islam. Would you encourage schools to tell the actual truth about Islam?
Of course.
I would.
Make them use this as a textbook.
Yeah. See, the problem is that the moment any school, if you're talking about public school, really most private schools probably as well, the moment any of them start telling the truth about Islam, they're going to be blasted by everyone, right? The media are going to blast them. Politicians are going to blast them. Muslim organizations like CARE and so on are certainly going to blast them. The ACLU is probably going to jump in there and say you're only doing this because of your religious agenda, enforcing your religious agenda on people and so on. And so, very, very difficult to do. I think it comes down to having an informed population first, right? And so by the way, that's the point of everyone reading the book and informing themselves, so that just think about the situation, right? If you walk up to a school and say, "Hey, you need to be teaching about this," very difficult to do if you're kind of the lone voice, right? But if an entire community becomes informed, if multiple churches in an area become informed, if Christians, atheists, agnostics, everyone in an area starts becoming informed, well, then it becomes much more realistic that some people will be telling some of this in schools. And I think the way, once that starts happening, I think the way to go about it is just put down indisputable facts, right? Put down indisputable historical facts from Muslim sources and teach those, right? In other words, hey, Muhammad's a false prophet because of this or this or that. That's going to be interpreted as a religious claim. But if you put down Muhammad went and fought this battle, and these were the causes of it. Then he went and fought that battle, and you just give a history of Muhammad. What can they possibly say, right? What can they possibly say? And don't spin it at all, right? Give what Islamic scholars have said about that sort of thing.
In this book, I tried wherever possible to quote Muslim historians, not Muslim historians of the present day who often have apologetic intent, but Muslim historians from the hey, greetings from Orthodox Serbia. Hello, Orthodox Serbia. Anyway, the Muslim historians in the old days of the Mughal Empire in India and others, the emperors had court historians who would write histories on the spot of what happened during the various emperors' reigns. And so these were Muslims who were lauding the slaughter and the subjugation and annihilation of the temples and the killing of the Hindus and so on. It's in their words. And they're saying this is all great. And so if you were to quote these things, you can't very well be accused, well, you will be accused of Islamophobia because they will anyway. But you're quoting Muslim sources who think this is all wonderful. And they're in the book in abundance.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no doubt. And a little extra thought there. If you wanted to do an experiment as far as the schools, put together a little couple pages. I'm talking to someone's a teacher or something like this, and is a teacher of history, and you get to decide your curriculum at your school. Put together a little discussion directly from Muslim sources, Muslim scholars, Muslim history books about the battles of Muhammad and the early caliphs and so on. Put that in there, and then see if there's an outrage. If there's an outrage and they're saying, "Oh, you're promoting hatred," and so on, then say, "I said exactly what the sources say." If you're saying it's hatred and evil, then you're saying it about them. You're not saying that about me. You're just telling me I revealed it to people, and that's what I'm supposed to do here at this school.
That's what's happening now, as a matter of fact. And a little bit of an aside, there's an imam in Denmark who quoted the famous genocidal hadith in which Muhammad is depicted as saying that the end times will not come until Muslims kill Jews, and the Jews will hide behind trees, and the trees will say, "Oh, Muslim, there's a Jew hiding behind me, come and kill him." And he quoted this. He's up on hate speech charges now in Denmark, and he commented the other day that his indictment was an indictment of Islam and the Islamic texts. And he's right. But I don't think the Danish authorities are going to follow through with the implications of that.
Here's a good one.
Yes.
Does the word jihad itself mean struggle?
Yes, it does.
So why wouldn't it just be some sort of internal struggle or some sort of self-defense struggle or something like that?
There's all kinds of jihads. There are, in the first place, in Islamic theology, there's the jihad of the tongue, jihad of the pen, as well as jihad of the sword. And in the actuality on the ground in Islamic states, you have things like in Iran, there's the Department of Agricultural Jihad, which is not planting bombs on the farm. It's trying to increase crop yields, struggling on the farm. But there is no doubt, if you look at any manual of Islamic law, any ruling of one of the schools of jurisprudence, Sunni or Shia, then you see that jihad primarily means warfare against unbelievers in order to subjugate them under the rule of Islamic law. That's the primary meaning of struggle in Islamic theology, and as I show in the book, it's the primary meaning of jihad in Islamic history.
So, yeah, if you were just talking about the word, you could say this or that.
It does mean struggle,
yes. Struggle, but in the Muslim sources, it means a particular kind of struggle.
Yes.
Just like Hitler's Mein Kampf, you say, "Oh,
that's
just a struggle, right? It's a struggle of any kind." So, there's nothing bad about it, right? It's just a struggle, right? You could say Mein Kampf is to hit the gym more, right? You could say Mein Kampf, right? So
Mein
what's the problem
is to get the kids to school on time.
Well, the problem is we know what Hitler's Kampf was, right? We know what that one was, just like we know what the Islamic struggle is according to Muhammad and his followers. So hope that helped. And we have tons of compliments over here.
Thank you for all the kind words.
You are a legend. Mr. Spencer is a hero. Your work is paramount in the fight for truth. Thank you all. Thank you everyone for the praises over here. And, actually here's a super chat question. Muhammad was an insurgent, and Islam is a religion of insurgency. That is why, after they defeat an infidel, they turn on each other.
They don't necessarily even wait to defeat an infidel. The history of jihad is full of accounts of the Sunni-Shiite split and Sunni-Shiite jihads against one another, not just in the time of the period after Muhammad, but also going right up to the end of the Ottoman Empire with the ongoing Ottoman wars against the Persians, who, of course, after 1501 were Shiites. And so the Arabic saying sums it up: my brother against my brother, but both of us against our cousin. And that's jihad throughout history. They fight each other, and they also fight non-believers.
And this is kind of unavoidable. I mean, it can be avoided by individual Muslims and groups of Muslims, but on a large scale, there's really no avoiding this because according to certainly Sunni sources, which, you're talking 85% or so of Muslims in the world, Muhammad said that the best generation of Muslims was the first generation. His generation was the best generation, and the next generation was the second best, and so on. And that first generation of Muslims almost annihilated itself by killing each other, right? You had Aisha, who has the title in Islam, the mother of the faithful, march an army out.
In Sunni Islam, the Shiites hate her.
March an army out against Ali, who's called the commander of the faithful. So you have the mother of the faithful marching an army against the commander of the faithful, and around 10,000 Muslims died in bloody combat, killing each other. Muslims on both sides had fought alongside of Muhammad at the Battle of Badr and Uhud and the Trench and so on. So these were Muslims who had been fighting an enemy, had been fighting the pagans and so on before, together united, and then they're killing each other over disagreements, right? And so notice, that's the best generation of Muslims, the best generation of Muslims ever.
The Golden Age.
Almost annihilated itself through violence. Why? Because they had learned from their prophet that the way to solve disagreements is through violence. And so if that's the best generation, then how can later Muslims say, well, we know better. We know better than the best generation of Muslims and the Muslims who learned Islam at the feet of Muhammad.
Chapter 2 of the History of Jihad, the period of the rightly guided caliphs, the golden age of Islam, the four caliphs, Abu Bakr, Umar, Uthman, and Ali after Muhammad. And it's characterized by civil war, bloodshed, murder of a couple of the caliphs themselves. So that in itself is very telling.
All right, well, we're
about out of time.
Yeah, we only have about 2 minutes left, and look where I am scrolling through the comments.
Oh my!
I'm at the very beginning. So vocab showed up.
Hi, vocab.
Yeah. Get off my page, vocab. Off my channel. Go back to your own. All right, so...
Yes, it will be available in audiobook. In the middle of August, I'm going to start voicing the book myself. I'm going to read this whole book, 448 pages, into a tape machine for the audiobook.
Are you sure you don't want me doing that reading? Check this out. Muhammad then marched on Mecca with an army of, according to some reports, 10,000 Muslims.
You're hired.
Huh? The whole thing, right? The whole thing like that. All right, so I noticed I only barely started going through the comments here. Thank you for everyone chipping in on the super chat. And Robert, I think we should do this again.
Thank you. Yes, absolutely. Anytime you want to come by, this, ladies and gentlemen, is my office. You can see my copies of Bukhari, Ibn Kathir, various Quran commentaries and such back behind us. And David, anytime you can drop by, we'll do it again.
And don't even need to drop by because we can do this online, right? We can do this online.
Once I learn the technology.
We will be exactly side by side, just like this, no problem. And for those of you who are watching the Answering Islam live streams that Tony and I were doing, there was a reason we stopped that. The internet was too glitchy. We are revamping. I'm switching providers totally and getting a bandwidth that will, I put it this way, I could have 100 people on simultaneously live streaming and still have no cut. So we're going to the top of the line, news broadcast worthy stuff, and we'll be starting again very soon once all that's set up, and we'll have Robert on there plenty as a guest, and you're going to be going through some of that.
Yes.
Everyone, I'll go ahead and put this in the description box after we sign off here. But I'm going to give you a link to Robert's channel. It's Jihad Watch Video. And Robert's going to be starting up some live streams. So if you're not subscribed to his channel, make sure you go ahead and subscribe to his channel because he's going to be sharing lots of information. And for those of you who don't go to his blog to study the current events about jihad, he's going to give kind of a video summary at the end of each week. And so if you want to stay up to date on what's going on in the world and learn its historical origins, you'll want to do that. So lots of people asking about where they can get the book. Certainly not difficult here in the U.S. You'd go on Amazon,
Yes.
but is it going to be the same? Because I saw some people asking from the U.K.
Well,
So-
yeah, it's on Amazon UK. It's on Amazon India. And it's on Amazon US. You can pre-order it now. It's also at barnesandnoble.com. And pretty soon it will be at any self-respecting bookstore.
And we will have more to say and more to discuss once this book comes out here in a couple weeks. And we'll be doing more shows discussing this. And if you read it and you have further questions, Robert will be here to answer it. So thank you all for joining in, and look forward to talking next time. And Robert, just so you know, all you have to do is click this button. And
Finish.
that closes it out. But because there's a delay, it's about a 15-second delay. It actually, for some reason, cuts it off on YouTube right when you click it, even though it's delayed. So it cuts off like the last 10 to 15 seconds of what you're saying. So we do this thing where we just give like a contemplative stare for like 10, 15 seconds. or
I'll
so.
work on that.
You ready? Okay, you ready? You broke it.